This video covers the first part of Chapter 5, the Integumentary System. In this video, we will discuss the structures and functions of the integumentary system, explain the layers and characteristics of the epidermis and dermis, compare thick and thin skin, and explain the factors affecting skin color. Let's begin with the integumentary system's structures and functions. The integumentary system is composed of skin, hair, nails, and the glands of the skin. The integumentary system has 5 general functions. First, it gives us protection against UV light, microorganisms, and water loss. The integumentary system also provides receptors that allow us the sensations of heat, cold, touch, pressure, and pain. It also acts in temperature regulation by adjusting the blood flow through the skin and activating sweat glands. The integumentary system produces vitamin D when the skin is exposed to UV light. And lastly, it eliminates small amounts of waste products from the body. Now let's discuss the layers and characteristics of the epidermis and dermis. The skin is made up of the epidermis and dermis. The epidermis is the superficial layer of stratified squamous epithelium. It functions to prevent water loss and to protect from invaders. The dermis is deep to the epidermis and is made of connective tissue. Notice how the large dermis compares to the thinner epidermis. The dermis gives structural strength to the skin. Below the dermis is the subcutaneous tissue, or hypodermis. This is not part of the skin. It is loose connective tissue that connects the skin to underlying structures. Some characteristics of the epidermis include that it is avascular. Instead of having blood vessels traveling through it, the epidermis receives its nourishment by diffusion from the capillaries in the dermis. Epithelial tissue is arranged into strata, or layers. We will learn the layers' names and characteristics. The epidermis is separated from the dermis by a basement membrane. The epidermis is made up of 4 types of cells. Keratinocytes are the main epidermal cell. They produce keratin for strength. Melanocytes produce melanin that contributes to skin color. After it's made, melanin is transferred to keratinocytes to protect their nuclei from UV radiation. All people have the same number of melanocytes, regardless of their skin color. Langerhans cells act as part of the immune system by defending us against invaders. And lastly, Merkel cells detect light touch and superficial pressure. An important concept to understand is keratinization. Keratinization explains the changes that occur as cells move superficially through the different epidermal layers. The deepest epidermal layer continuously undergoes mitosis, producing new cells. The cells are pushed superficially as new cells are continually made below them. Along the way, cells are filled with keratin, die, and serve as a protective layer to resist abrasion. In the middle of this image, the numbers 1 through 5 name the 5 epidermal layers. The image shows how cells change as they move through the layers due to keratinization. The deepest layer, numbered 1 in the image, is stratum basale. This is where mitosis occurs and cells begin their journey to the stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and finally stratum corneum. One way to memorize the 5 layers is by the mnemonic, "Can Lucy give some blood?" This gives the 5 epidermal layers beginning superficially and moving deep. CAN stands for stratum corneum, Lucy stands for stratum lucidum, and so on. Now let's go through what is happening in each layer. Beginning with the deepest epidermal layer, let's discuss stratum basale. Stratum basale is a single layer of cuboidal or columnar keratinocyte stem cells. These stem cells are attached to one another with desmosomes and to the basement membrane by hemidesmosomes. This layer is highly mitotic. Keratinocyte stem cells undergo mitosis approximately every 19 days. This results in 2 daughter cells. One of the daughter cells remains in the stratum basale to divide again, while the other is pushed superficially to become keratinized. It takes approximately 40 to 56 days for a cell to move from the stratum basale to the skin's surface and then be sloughed off. One of the daughter cells produced by the stratum basale layer moves upward to the second deepest layer of the epidermis, called the stratum spinosum. The stratum spinosum is made of 8 to 10 layers of many-sided cells that flatten as they are pushed up. They contain new desmosomes and lipid-filled lamellar bodies and additional keratin fibers. Keep in mind that the image shown here is only showing the first few layers of the stratum spinosum, as well as some of the other strata. So each layer's actual thickness is not shown here. After the stratum spinosum layer, cells become part of the stratum granulosum. This layer is composed of 2 to 5 layers of flat diamond-shaped cells. Stratum granulosum gets its name from the protein granules of keratinohyaline that accumulate in the cytoplasm. Also, lamellar bodies move to the plasma membrane and release their lipids into the extracellular space. The most superficial layers are far from the dermal capillaries, so they end up dying. While the cell's nucleus and organelles degenerate, keratin fibers and keratinohyaline granules do not. The next layer is the stratum lucidum. This is only found in the skin of the palms and the soles of the feet. It is a thin, clear layer of dead keratinocytes with indistinct boundaries. The last and most superficial epidermal layer is the stratum corneum. It is made up of 25 or more layers of overlapping squamous cells joined by desmosomes. These dead keratinocytes are called cornified cells. These cell remnants have a soft protein envelope of keratin, a mixture of keratin fibers and keratinohyaline, giving the skin its softness. Eventually, the desmosomes will be degenerated and the cells will be sloughed off. Now let's compare thick and thin skin. The designation of thick or thin skin refers only to the epidermis. Thick skin has all 5 epidermal layers. It is found in areas subjected to pressure or friction, like our hands, fingertips, and soles of the feet. Thin skin contains 4 of the 5 epidermal layers. It is missing the stratum lucidum. Thin skin is more flexible and covers the rest of the body. Hair grows on thin skin. Now let's discuss the factors affecting skin color. Skin color is determined by 3 factors: the pigments in the skin, the blood circulating through the skin, and the thickness of the stratum corneum. The two main pigments are melanin and keratin. Melanin protects against UV light. It gives a brown, black, yellowish, or reddish color. Albinism is a deficiency or an absence of melanin. Keratin is a yellow pigment from vegetables that accumulates in the stratum corneum, adipose of the dermis, and in the hypodermis. The second factor affecting skin color was the blood circulating through the skin. Skin takes on a reddish hue due to the increased presence of blood during blushing, anger, and inflammation. The last factor affecting skin color was the thickness of the stratum corneum. A thicker stratum corneum layer adds a yellowish hue to the skin color. Dermal pigments, and substances may give a bluish undertone to the skin. Racial variation in skin color is due to the types of melanin produced, the amount of melanin produced, the size of melanosomes, which are vesicles containing melanin, the number of melanosomes, and the distribution of melanosomes. Now let's finish with the deepest layer of the skin, the dermis. The dermis is made of connective tissue with many fibers, fibroblasts, macrophages, and adipocytes. This dermal structure gives skin its strength. The dermis also contains nerves, blood vessels, hairs, smooth muscles, glands, and lymphatic vessels. Remember, the blood vessels are used not only by the dermis, but also by the epidermis, which exchanges its gases through the dermal blood vessels via diffusion. Lastly, the dermis provides many sensory functions, like the detection of pain, itches, tickles, temperature, and 2-point discrimination. The dermis is made of 2 layers which are variable in thickness. The most superficial layer is the papillary layer. It is composed of areolar connective tissue with many elastic fibers. The papillary layer creates dermal papillae, or ridges, found between the epidermis and dermis. Additionally, the capillary beds that supply the epidermis are located in the papillary layer, as are the Meissner, Pacinian, and Ruffini touch receptors. Free nerve endings for sensing pain are also located in the papillary layer. Deep to the papillary layer is the reticular layer. It is composed of dense, irregular connective tissue with collagen and elastic fibers. The reticular layer also has adipose tissue, hair follicles, nerves, oil glands, ducts of sweat glands, and heat receptors. In this video, we learned the structures and functions of the integumentary system, the layers and characteristics of the epidermis and dermis, about thick and thin skin, and factors affecting skin color.